All right, we're going to get started now that it's a little after 7 o'clock. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight to learn more about the bond referendum. Well, we're going to ask the community and vote on a very important improvements in just 1 week's time. My name is Dr. Sumit Bangia, and I'm the proud superintendent of the Mount Olive School District. As you know, I'm an alumni of this wonderful school. I have the unique perspective and privilege of watching the district grow from the past to the present and now playing a role in its future. That means a lot to me. Something that is very important to me is being transparent through this entire referendum process to ensure that we inform the community so everyone is comfortable in making an informed decision on December 12th. We have afforded a variety of opportunities during this process to inform Mount Olive residents about the referendum and what it means to our schools and community. You have likely heard about the upcoming election multiple times through social media, websites, newspapers, postcards, and flyers around town. So at this moment, prior to us beginning, I would like to take this moment to introduce our panelists. As I shared, my name is Dr. Sumit Bangia, and I am the superintendent. Like many of our in-person events, on this forum, you're going to hear and get to ask questions from our experts. You'll hear from administrators explain why these projects would greatly impact Mount Olive students and staff members. The architects who work with the district, who reviewed in the details of the projects, the district's financial advisors, who will talk about the opportunity for state and that's aid that's only available through the referendum, and all the panelists would answer questions submitted by the public. So at this time, could I just have everyone quickly introduce themselves? Mr. Miller, you want to start off?
Sure. I'm Glenn Miller. I'm Director of Building and Grounds for the Mount Olive School District.
I'm Colleen Slay, Director of Athletics.
Nicole, you want to?
Hi, I'm Nicole Schoening. I'm the Business Administrator.
Mr.
Kevin
Stansbury?
Yep, sure. Kevin Stansbury, Principal, Mount Olive High School for, I don't know, nearly 3 decades.
And Mr. Stansbury likes to say that because I went to school here in the 90s. So Thank you, Mr. Stansbury. You always bring that every night.
Yes.
At this point, I'd also like to introduce our professional advisors, Matt.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Gianfrancaro. I'm with Gianfrancaro Architects and Engineers. We're the architects of record for the district.
Tony?
Good evening, everyone. Tony Solomini. I'm the school district's bond attorney, and I work at the law firm Wilentz, Goldman and Spitzer.
And Danielle?
Hi, good evening. I'm Danielle Marino. I'm with Phoenix Advisors. We're the municipal advisor for the district.
So before we get into our formal presentation, as I shared with you, there are going to be a way for the public who are viewing this webinar to submit questions. So what we're going to ask the public is to type your questions into the Zoom chat. Questions will be directed to the appropriate panelists, such as myself or those we just introduced. So we'll get to as many questions as we can before ending around 8:30 p.m. Please note that this forum is recorded and can be watched at a later time on our district website under the referendum section. In addition to submitting questions via our Zoom chat, you can also submit questions at our referendum@motsd.org email address. As we do with Board of Ed meetings, we ask you to include your name and street address with your question, whether you send it by email or through the Q&A feature on Zoom. And just one final reminder, please also check the website for more information about the December 12th vote. That you'll also find some videos, project and financial details, and also our fantastic frequently asked questions. So let's kick off tonight by discussing what exactly a bond referendum is and why it's brought to the Mount Olive at this point. A bond referendum is a vote in which the school district asks the community permission to sell bonds to finance large-scale projects. The strategy will grant the district's upfront funding and spread the project costs over time, similar to how a homeowner uses home equity loans to make improvements. Most importantly, it will bring in some state aid that will help pay for these projects. The district leaders have always are thinking ways to maintain our school buildings and ensure we continue our tradition of excellence. From this slide that you're seeing right now, a recent demographic study was completed. It was actually done in December of 22, which shows our enrollment is going to be expected to rise over the next 3 to 5 years. We're already seeing evidence of this with our new develops in the towns. As you can see, we're about 4,800 students in the district, and we're projected to be well over 5,100. With that increase, some of our buildings are at near end of our useful life, and a number of placements and repairs are recommended. Other improvements would bring facilities up to grade and would enable us to continue for every student high quality educational experiences that the community has come to expect. With fiscal responsibility in mind, the administration board proposed a bond referendum as a strategy for the district to address the infrastructure updates, space updates, and facility improvements with advantage of state aid. That's a big advantage. 11.5 million of the state's money, the taxpayers' money, that can be only used in Mount Olive through voter approval of a referendum. So what we're going to do right now is going to how the district utilizes the maintenance budget and capital reserve funds to maintain our facilities. I'm going to now introduce our business administrator, Nicole Schoening, as well as our director of building and grounds, Glenn Miller, to cover this. Nicole?
Hi, good evening, everyone. We're looking at our current year 23-24 annual operating budget. As you can see, the majority of our budget is for salaries and benefits, which leaves not that much to take care of the rest of the very important needs of the district. You'll see we have 28% going for routine maintenance and custodial services, another 28% of supplies and support services, which basically includes all instructional and support supplies and services such as guidance, the nursing office, curriculum, instructional supplies direct in the classroom. Then we have 24% of transportation and tuition, which are all the costs associated with transporting all of the students in the district, bus leases, supplies for the buses, maintenance for the bus mechanics to repair them and keep them in safe working order, and then tuition for out-of-district placements for our regular educational students who attend academy programs at the Morris County School of Technology or to special private schools or local private schools for disabled students in the district. We have approximately another 8%, which goes for administration and technology, administration being the superintendent's office, the business office, and the school administration, the school offices in each of the school buildings, and technology that supports the administration of the district. We have about 8% for capital outlay, which includes the complete replacement of systems and or equipment, such as items over $2,000. And then last but not least, 4% goes to our athletic department, which consists of supplies, uniforms, official fees, maintenance of the district facilities for athletics.
Hey, Nicole, can I clarify just to make sure the people who are viewing this to understand that pie right there is only 20%, representing 20% of our budget, right? Correct? So
Absolutely.
When we're talking about 28%, that's only 28% of the 20%, right? So we're really breaking such a smaller percentage. So
we're
and
really
the reason,
cramming.
yeah, and that's exactly. So what we wanted to showcase to the public here is to understand within that 20 remaining percent, these are all the things that has to get done within the district. Thank you.
So required versus capital maintenance, what is the difference? Glenn, do you want to talk about this slide?
Sure. So, required maintenance is specific maintenance activities required for system warranty purposes, which are approved for repairs and replacements for the purpose of keeping a school facility open and safe for use of its or in its original condition. So this includes plumbing, heating, lighting, ventilation. It includes all of our inspections, sprinkler inspections, extinguishers, suppression system inspections, our right to know, chemical hygiene, as well as any system that is required to operate the school. So so that's required maintenance. Capital improvement is anything that's over $2,000. It's usually the large projects would be the come out of our capital budget.
Now let's go to that next slide here, and we'll look at exactly what we're talking about as far as our capital projects are concerned. So Mr. Miller, you want to start talking a little bit about our capital projects as far as what exactly that entails?
Right. So capital projects, over the years have been window replacements, interior renovations. We did at CMS, a whole school worth of window replacements. Mountain View, we did some interior renovations. We did a boiler replacement at Mountain View. Sand Shore, we did boiler replacement, interior renovations. We did a whole water system upgrade and filtration system that was done over multiple years. We also did a full school worth of window replacements and some HVAC work on the roof, as well as we replaced all the unit vents in the entire school. Since Road, we've done a complete roof replacement and a full interior renovation. The middle school, we've done athletic facility updates, some minor interior renovations. We've replaced all 6 boilers, all 6 chillers. We've done a complete new control system, and we also have we did an envelope project where we sealed the exterior of the building from the interior. High school, we've done multiple interior renovations as well as exterior renovations. We've done about 80% of the roof. 80 to 90% of the roof has been replaced. We've done probably about 90% of the windows have been replaced at the high school. Multiple athletic facility updates, IT upgrades. We've done 4 rooftop units. We just recently did 2 rooftop units, so that would make a total of 6. The last 2 was paid for by the ESSER 2 grants. I've put in a new water storage tank, a 15,000 gallon tank. We've replaced the water heaters, new boilers, and then we've also put in a water filtration system. We've done a gymnasium addition, which is now the wrestling room and is used for gymnastics and also a ROTC drill. We did repairs to the fire pump and then added an electrical upgrade to the fire pump. We've added an emergency generator, and we already talked about the water system. The bus garage, we've done paving, new telecommunications system, and we've also done paving at the middle school and various areas throughout the district.
Now, Mr. Miller, it's safe to say that you and your team have been quite busy, servicing the district with all these various projects. But at the same time, I'm sure the public is curious is the fact that many tough decisions had to be made, correct?
That is correct. I mean, we try to identify the needs and budget accordingly. And sometimes there's, educational priorities, and we have hard conversations of what those priorities are going to be for that year's budget.
Yeah, and that's really critical. Certainly, this list is, first of all, not everything, but certainly the most major projects that we've completed, but also represents some really tough conversations that had been had within the district in the past decade or so to determine what were the money is going to be spent towards. As Ms. Showing pointed out, from our larger budget, when you work within the 20% and you whittle that down, there's only X amount of money left. And with that, a number of projects have to get done. And certainly the direct facing ones impacting students and student learning environments take the precedent. Am I correct, Mr. Miller?
That is correct. Absolutely.
Now, Ms. Schoening, as far as the referendum is concerned, could you talk us a little bit about the logic as far as what projects were included in there?
Well, we selected projects that obviously were very crucial to the district, namely the roofs that are nearing the end of their warranties, and the HVAC units that Mr. Miller has and his staff have very routinely repaired all of these units that can no longer due to the old age of these units, the antiquated parts that they can no longer get. The district has no choice but to include them in this referendum. And also, they are eligible for state aid. And even if the district had these monies in their capital reserve budget, we would wind up paying for the entire project on our own instead of tapping in to this amazing amount of money that the district is eligible for. So we selected the roofs and the HVAC units, and obviously the classroom additions, which we greatly need to address our growing community over the next fiscal year. And with having the referendum in mind, the district is always seeking out other forms of financing to afford other projects, because let's face it, on a daily basis, we don't know when something else is going to come down the pike. We always need to be ready to repair, maintain, replace anything that comes our way to keep the district in safe working order.
Now, Nicole, you pointed out something, and I think perhaps Mr. Miller can, Glenn could share this. You talked about like the maintenance of this equipment it's pretty, I was use the term intense, correct? Some of it is aging, and we want to make sure it lasts as long as it has, and we're grateful for it is. Mr. Miller, do you want to kind of tell us about your maintenance team that allows us to, keep our infrastructure as long as we have?
Yeah, so I'm fortunate to have 3 licensed HVAC technicians. And, they do an amazing job of doing preventive maintenance and keeping our equipment, running at factory design specifications. The issues that we're starting to have right now is that the units are sometimes they have aged out where the parts are no longer manufactured. And, we've had to get creative to keep some of these things, operational.
Well, thank you, Mr. Miller, for showing as far as explaining a little background as far as how our budget is created and the difference between the various funding allotments. What we're going to do right now is we're going to start to look at the actual questions on the ballot. So at this time, I'm going to be turning it over to our architect, Matthew, if you want to talk about items from question number 1.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Bangia. So question 1 includes HVAC improvements at every school. It includes some univentilator projects and rooftop units at almost every school. It also includes roofing at every school other than tints. The majority of the buildings, it's the entirety of the roof is being replaced. With the exception of the high school. The high school is only it's a little less than 10%. As Mr. Miller stated, the majority of the roof has already been addressed at the high school, but within the referendum is the remaining sections. Also included in question 1 is the paving of some parking lot at the high school, as well as additions at 3 of the schools. There are some classroom additions at Tins Road and the Sandshore School. They consist of 6 classrooms, as well as 4 small group instructional spaces. And at the middle school, we're proposing a multi-purpose room addition, which will also include 2 classrooms that can be used as either health or general education classrooms. The classroom additions at the 2 elementary schools are to address some of the space needs that the district is anticipating. And similarly, the middle school multi-purpose room addition is also going to address some spatial needs. The middle school has some needs as far as fitting the student population in the existing multi-purpose room spaces. So we're hoping that this will address those. You'll see on I just want to address one item that you'll see on the slide showing what's in question 1, that the total amount, the total proposed project amount for question 1 is 52.8 million in improvements. And as part of that, the district would be receiving $11.1 million in state aid. If you run those numbers, the 11.1 comes out to about 20%, a little over 20% of that 52.8. And I just want to point out that the projects that are eligible for that state aid, which are the HVAC improvements, the roofing, and any interior renovations throughout the schools, those projects that are eligible are receiving the 34% funding from the state. The additions, which unfortunately are not feasible to really be budgeted throughout this, the yearly budget, those projects do not receive any state funding. So when you average the numbers out, it comes out to a little over 20%. But the eligible projects will be receiving the full 34% funding.
So just to recap for everyone who's watching at home, so what we're looking at is, additional instructional spaces at the middle school, Sancher and Tints. So that takes about up 38% of the budget question in number 1. At the middle school, we're looking at a little over 13,000 square feet of additions, through the auxiliary gym and 2 classrooms. And each Sancher and Tints will receive about a little over 8,000 square feet of additional classrooms, which will include 6 classrooms as well as 4 small group instruction rooms in each building. So that's going to be as far as the additions are concerned. And when we're talking about roofing takes up about 31% of the question 1 number budget. And, new roofs will be going to be added to the middle school, Mountain View, Sand Shore, CMS, and about 7% of the roof of the high school will be replaced. And Tints is not going to be under here because we replaced that roof in 2014. We're also going to be rounding up as far HVAC systems, which takes about 24% of the budget in question number 1. And certainly, Matt, you want to tell us why the benefits of that new system?
Sure. So the benefits of improving upon the HVAC systems is that since COVID, one of the benefits is that since COVID, the district has started to improve their systems to include MERV 13 filtrations. The issue is that some units weren't originally designed for that type of filtration. So as we replace these units will now be suited for that increase in filtration. I just want to also add that as part of question 1, there are also some renovations to the high school that will also be eligible for that 34% funding. And I'll let Dr. Stansberry talk a little bit more about this, but some of those renovations include a manufacturing lab. Right now we have some spaces that are dedicated to robotics, and we have a wood shop and a fitness cardio room. Those will be renovated into a full manufacturing lab. Like I said, I'll let Dr. Stansberry talk a little bit more of that. We're also proposing a dedicated sensory room that will be located adjacent to the media center. And we are also expanding upon the athletic trainers area with an increase in student population and athletics. We feel the need for increased spaces for the athletic trainers. Those renovations only account for about 7% of the budget for question 1.
Got it. So thank you so much, Matt. At this point, I see that we got a question in the chat, so thank you for that. What we're going to do is we're going to wrap up question 1 as far as all the items on there. So if, I'm going to turn this over to, Mr. Stansberry and Ms. Souffle and kind of talk about as far as the, direct benefits of the project's impact on our students, especially when we talk about the high school projects. Mr. Stansberry?
Sure. I've had an incredible vantage point, starting service to this district in 1997 when the middle school referendum was passed, and to see how our community has grown and embraced our educational mission and vision, and that you've entrusted us to make financial decisions to improve our programs. And as a result, we've created pleasant problems for Mount Olive Township, because we are a high-performing district. Families are, they want to move to this district because of the incredible programming, all the way from our special needs program, all the way up to some of our special pathways. And I can't emphasize that enough. And now, as we're approaching the vote for next Tuesday, we've seen what your investments in our educational community have done in terms of the new middle school, the high school renovations from 2003, which was a $50 million referendum that was passed by this community. And now we're looking to expand because we see increased enrollment. We see increased programming opportunities for all of our students to really prepare them for college and career readiness and that workplace readiness program. So at the high school, you're going to see a lot of repurposing and renovations in the internal aspect of it in question number 1. In one particular area, Matt Gianfacaro was also highlighting that we're going to be doing a lot of work with adding a brand new manufacturing center. As you know, Mount Olive High School has had a preeminent STEAM program for almost 20 years. We've been ahead of the district. We've been ahead of the state. I would argue that we've been ahead of this region of the United States. So we're going to add to that facility. We have 2 robotics labs. And as you know, we have a world-ranked robotics program, and a lot of our students pursue controlled technologies. We have a wood shop that we're going to repurpose as well. And then we're taking a space downstairs and extending to add a manufacturing center. And we're going to start with screen printing and embroidering programs that are going to introduce the B-STEAM aspect, business with STEAM, entrepreneurship and small business. We're actually going to be installing a brand new student store in the Commons, and we are going to be creating or making our own spirit wear with the screen printing and embroidering center that's a part of that manufacturing center. Eventually, we would love to see that extended to food trucks and tiny homes. But these programs are going to be available to all students. And I know Ms. Souffle is going to speak eloquently about the unified sports program, but we also have a unified curriculum. And we have unified makers, we have unified PE, and we also have unified theater. So a lot of our students are going to have this experience with that workplace readiness to get them to go out in the real world and have employable skills with this program. But that's one part of this project. And I know Ms. Souffle has some other areas that will be addressed as part of question 1 for Mount Olive High School.
Ms. Souffle, why don't you talk about as far as the athletic related changes?
Let me just interject one other aspect of the manufacturing center. So I've made it no secret, I've been very forthright with the fact that Mount Olive High School competes with the Morris County VOTEC system. All right, I think we need to speak about this because we've done a great job with building a highly successful STEAM program over the years. And before 97, before 2003, when I took over as principal, it was not uncommon for families to look for other high school opportunities, whether it was private parochial or the academy system. What people don't realize is when students get accepted to the academy system, that comes out of our school budget. So we pay the tuition to go to that vocational system. What we want to do is take that money and keep all of our students at Mount Olive to the best of our abilities and reinvest it into our programs and our facilities. And we've successfully done that over the last 15 to 17 years. We want every student, every family that resides within our township to attend Mount Olive High School. We have programs that the academy system can't even touch. And we've taken a great deal of pride in that. And we've kept that money in the district instead of letting our students leave and look for other opportunities. We've provided those opportunities for them.
Thank you so much, Mr. Stansberry. Ms. Souffle? You're on mute, Ms. Souffle.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Stansberry. Thank you, Dr. Bangia. I wanted to speak a little bit about some of the growing programs that we have here at Mount Olive High School. And question one specifically, we're talking about the expansion of the athletic training facility. I think that some of the misconception about the athletic training facility is that kids just kind of go in, grab some ice, and head out with a Band-Aid or whatnot. We have done some calculations so far for this school year, and we have almost 1,000 athletes competing in the fall and winter seasons. And that means that we have 1,000 athletes that need not only the services of our athletic training for prehab and rehab, but they also do a variety of other activities. They do concussion assessments. They do nutrition. Dr. Labosco is part of our incredible staff, and they are running professional development programs with our coaching staff for cardiac and sudden cardiac arrest. So our programs are expanding incredibly. Our athletic training services, we had a walkthrough, I guess, last week at some point, and we had 8 or 9 adults in the athletic training room, and it was already too tight. All right. It was already too tight. We have about 40 to 60 student athletes entering that room on a daily basis. And it's in a really important environment for us to make sure that we are prioritizing the health and the safety and the development of our student athletes. So that's a need. That's a need with the growing population. Many years ago, Mr. Stansberry can speak on this. We had 1 athletic trainer because that was what we needed. But now we have 2 athletic trainers because that is what we needed. And we don't have the space, and we've not moved with the space. So the space is a really important part of the emotional, social development of our athletes, in addition to just the physical preparedness. So the athletic training space is an important part of that. I wanted to make mention for question 1, in addition, is the fitness center and area. Mr. Stansberry spoke about the labs, the B-STEAM labs. Okay, those are going to be potentially located downstairs where the cardio facility was. That is just simply going to get relocated. That's not an additional something for the athletic program. That is a space that's actually just getting redesigned in a different area. And again, the program.
Can I ask Ms. Souffle, like, why is that actually relocation a good location for it to be, and also just as far as even beyond, the phys ed type of day? Where is it? Right across near the trainers?
The location is fantastic because the previous location was actually downstairs, and this location is right by the auxiliary gym and a stone's throw away from the athletic training facility. So the location's fantastic.
So we can maximize the use of it at a much more grander scale than what we do right now downstairs.
Oh, absolutely. And also the physical education classes will be able to access it because it's closer to the locker rooms and the main gymnasium. We've also have improved programs. I know that we'll talk about that in question 2, but just to throw it out there, just to validate the need for some of this extra space is, just this year alone, we've included a girls gymnastics program that we're basically housing in the building at this point. Right now we have almost 100 unified sports participants, which is almost tripled what's been happening in the past. We also have more ice hockey participants. We are having a brand new bowling team that we have called our own. We have a brand new girls flag football program. So increased enrollment means awesome for Mount Olive, but also increased opportunities, and with a diversified, focus on making sure we are creating opportunities for all of our athletes and all of our students.
And I'm going to thank you so much, Colleen. That was great. Mr. Miller, want to talk about the paving a little bit before we get to our questions that were asked by the public?
Sure. So the area that we want to pave is the bus loop, which is directly in front of the high school, and then that outer road that goes from the main entrance to the rear entrance. We're going to pick up 34% will be covered by the money coming from the state. This was one of those hard hard decisions that we had to make. I have added this into our budget for the last couple of years. And when we have to come and prioritize what things, or, our items, there was educational priorities that were needed more than the paving. So that's that's why it's added to the referendum.
All right, thank you so much. So at this point, I'm going to go to some of the questions. We had a couple questions are in the chat. So first question is, why weren't these updates included in the budget? Nicole and Glenn, you want to, or Nicole, you want to kind of walk us through a little bit about our 5-year maintenance plan and all the updates we've made to HVAC and roofing and whatnot?
Sure. So every 5 years, the district is required to update their long-range facilities plan. And if that has been done, it needs to be updated once again if the district is going to go out for referendum. So back in August, the district had completed their LRFP, and it was approved by the board. And within that long-range facilities plan is basically a 5-year maintenance plan that shows all of the required maintenance project that the district plans on doing. And that document is a budgeting tool that will be put in each year's budget, beginning with the preparation of our 24-25 budget.
Great. All right. So let me see.
Dr. Vangia, could I just add one thing too about budgeting? Sure. And
yes.
Please, if I misspeak, Ms. Schoening or Dr. Vangia, please stop me. But I just, when it comes to budgeting, Ms. Schoening and Mr. Miller mentioned earlier about, how over the last, 10 plus years, projects have been budgeted, whether they were educationally based or, maintenance as far as, unit ventilators, boilers, windows at CMS, parking lots. And moving forward, I just want to point out that the projects that are included in this referendum, the HVAC, the roofs, the renovations, they by no means encompass all of the work that's going to have to be done in the next 20 years or 25 years. Now, naturally, the additions just simply aren't feasible to budget, year after year. But just as an example, we replaced the boilers at the high school around 2011, 2012. Within the next, so that makes them about 11 years old. Within the next 14, 15 plus years, those eventually are going to have to be replaced. But, those aren't included in the referendum. We did, a window project at CMS. We have windows to be replaced at Mountain View. Those aren't included in the referendum. And I just want to make the point that, these items are some of the highest priority items, some of the more, costly items that by going out for a bond referendum to take care of these projects, we are now enabling, we're taking some of these projects off the table to help enable the district to budget for those other projects that, that are inevitably going to have to be done over the next, 20 to 25 years.
And someone may interject as well?
Of course, Tony.
I have the fortune of, I get to work with a lot of school districts throughout the state. And I think a misconception is that if you go to a referendum, you don't have a plan, but the reverse is actually accurate. The referendum is the plan. And it's because of the planning the district's done to take advantage of the state aid. And that's why districts decide to go on a referendum. And I think it's pretty apparent when you looked at the chart that Ms. Schoening put up before, where 80% of your costs are for salary and benefits, and the additional 20% of your budget has to be divided. It's virtually impossible for almost any district in the state to address substantial capital improvements like this. And I've been working with districts throughout the state, and there are very, very, very few districts that can address major capital needs within their budget or within their capital reserve. And a lot of them are planning for a referendum and using that tool because of debt service aid. So I think that's a misconception that there isn't a plan, but I think that really is the plan. And that's why the district decided to use a referendum.
Now, Ms. Shoney, I'm actually going to ask you a question because I'm not sure if the public is aware of that. Certainly, as a school district, we're capped as far as our budget is able to increase on a regular basis. Now, with that capped increase, are the services that we have to pay towards the vendors that we use, are they capped?
No, we're capped at 2% to raise our tax levy. And unfortunately, nothing increases by 2%. Our contracts on our utilities do not increase by 2%. Our utilities increase a minimum of 5% a year. Increases on our health budget, our dental budget is usually about 10%. It's very hard to keep within that 2%. A couple of times the state grants specific adjustments to our tax levy for anticipated enrollment, or if the district is anticipating high healthcare costs. But in general, we're only permitted to increase our budget 2%. So we have to pack in quite a bit into a small amount. And going back to the question about budgeting and why weren't these things planned for, in every annual budget, there is a maintenance budget that's very specific to keep our systems in working order so that the warranties are maintained. And we keep these warranties intact, and we know, and part of the planning, like I discussed before with the long range facilities plan, of what needs to be replaced when, and that translates to the ultimate plan of the referendum that Mr. Salamini just spoke about.
So our next question is actually also for you, Nicole. Sorry.
So just one additional point with that.
Or Mr. Sansbury.
As it pertains to the roofs and the maintenance component of this referendum, I mean, it just makes sense that we've been expanding our programmings, upgrading our facilities, improving our technology. I mean, the roofs, it's an investment in protecting our investment in the educational programming. And I think that's important to understand. The HVAC is a safety issue, filtration of the air, fresh systems going in those school buildings, but we're protecting our investment with these roofs. And I don't know who wouldn't want to support something like that, because we've done some outstanding things with all of our buildings from elementary all the way through high school. And this is a way for us to get a peace of mind in terms of protecting everything that we've added to our system.
Thank you so much.
Can I add to that?
Sure, Mr. Miller.
So, the roofs have been under warranty, and we've done everything in our power to keep that warranty from being voided. And the roofs now are falling off of warranty. And the reality is that possibly we could do portions of the roof within our operating budget, but we can't do a whole roof of a whole building. Just the middle school roof alone is close to $6 million to do a replacement. The middle school is 23 years old. We've already had to replace the boilers and the chillers and the control system in the middle school. And, the roof is up, the warranty is up this year. And we are starting to have more and more leaks as it goes. So, we have planned, we've had to address the things, but, the other projects, we had active warranties on our roofs. So, but now we're at the point where the warranties are falling off.
Thank you. So, Ms. Shoney, it's the next question's for you. Was discussing the Jumbotron. Has the Jumbotron with taxpayer money been paid off?
Nicole, you're muted.
I'm sorry. we have a lease that is paying down that Jumbotron.
Yeah. So we're in the process of paying that off.
Correct.
Correct. All right. Thank you. So at this time, I don't think we have any more questions in the chat. Let's go move on to question number 2 on the referendum. Matt, do you want to lead us into question number 2? You're mute right now.
Sorry.
Everyone's so polite. Everyone, everyone's very proper Zoom etiquette, right?
I apologize. So within question 2, are renovations to the boys' team rooms and the girls' locker room, the existing spaces, as well as a small addition on the high school to include new team room spaces that could be used, across the board for athletics. As well as a new transportation garage over at the transportation facility at the middle school. Right now, the garage is kind of starting to become in disrepair. The offices for the transportation department are, an old trailer, for lack of a better word, that is in desperate need of improvements. So within question 2 would be a new facility for for maintaining the bus fleet, as well as offices for that staff. The bus garage accounts for about 43% of question 2 specifically, and the physical education and athletic improvements, including the renovations and the new space, consists of about the 53% of question 2, which translate to about 10% of the overall referendum.
Thank you so much, Matt, for the overall of the improvements that we're proposing for our schools. I'm going to ask Colleen if you want to maybe start talking about the proposed athletic improvements.
Yes, thank you. So for the locker room and storage additions at Mount Olive High School, one of the most difficult parts of being an efficient parting department is actually storage space. And we just simply don't have any storage space. We have coaches who are taking things home. We have things that are piled up. I would have loved to take the whole community on a tour. We have stuff stored in old hallways and old stairwells. We just simply don't have the storage. So that is not something that is a luxury for us. It is, if you come to my office, it's part storage as well. And that renovation part or addition is an absolute necessity. We are actually beginning to get held up on some of the supplies that we can use for the development of not only our students, but our student athletes. We have one of the greatest things about Mount Olive that we've continued to do. There was this big burst in 2010. It was called Project Adventure and Adventure Education, and Mount Olive is one of the very few schools who are still using it. I come from a district of 25 years who had a really beautiful Project Adventure course. It's just rotting wood. And we use it. And with those supplies, there's helmets, there's cords, there's large pieces of wood. And, the greatest thing is that, all of our students are privy to the education of physical education and health education for all 4 years. Our health classes actually use the Project Adventure course. So additional locker room space so they could get ready to go outside and with gloves and hats and sweatshirts to access some of those facilities. It would be wonderful to bring our unified sports program upstairs to the athletic area, and an additional storage space and an additional locker room would be super helpful for them. Again, one of the great things about health and phys ed is that we get to have those students all 4 years, and that's every single student in every single building. So that storage space is incredibly important for just this development of our students.
And I just want to chime in here as a former Mount Olive athlete. I know I use that term loosely with my athletic prowess as a time my student. But that locker room, that girls' locker room, is the same locker room I had when I was here. Correct,
Right.
Mrs. White?
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And Mr. Stansberry, correct? Is that because I know you've been here for 3 decades?
Yeah. Right. Right. He has.
Affirmative, affirmative.
So, you know, the interesting thing about the locker rooms is that we're not really updating the locker rooms, with the exception of getting rid of some really bad flooring, which is chipped, putting a fresh paint in, because that is also chipped. In the men's locker room itself, they have one coaching area. There's 18 men in it, with one bathroom. It's really just not okay. It's not a good working environment. Our teachers and our coaches are, in spite of it, still maintaining a successful, positive attitude. But they're not getting a new room. We're just changing the footprint of it to expand some space and reallocate areas where different lockers can go in for our students. That's an important part that I think that we need to recognize, that's not new space. There's new storage space and a partial new locker room area, but the other part is just we've got to give them a space.
That's right. And I know Ms. Colleen mentioned about 10 minutes ago about how all our athletic programs have exponentially increased. So not only has the number of students who have participated, but it's also a variety of sports. And with those new programs require often new spaces for them to meet in and to change in, right? And we're very proud that a lot of those changes are equally both male and female. Is that correct, Ms. Colleen?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not just, it's every student in this building, to give them a space that is respectable, that we value them being a part of the environment, and that we care about where we're putting them. It's also, the junior ROTC uses the locker rooms. We want to bring the unified sports up to use the locker rooms. The color guard will need access to locker rooms. We host a lot of outside events that access our locker rooms as well. And, proper storage and showers and cleanliness is also a big part of that.
So we have a question in here, is why not budget for locker rooms? Nicole, I'm going to turn that back over you, and what you can kind of emphasize as far as when projects are looked at. Do you want to?
This project, and I'm going to ask for the assistance of Matt in this. This project is eligible for state aid, is it not? And that's why we decided to put it in the referendum.
That is correct. The renovations to the existing spaces is eligible for the 34%. And actually the locker room, the small locker room addition at the high school actually is receiving some funding as well. Not the full 34%, but it is receiving some funding from the state.
That we would have to pay the full freight if we were to put it in our budget. So that's why we chose that.
And also I just want to emphasize to the public, and I don't want to, rehash the same conversation, but often, with the pool of money available to us every year, decisions are made that are prioritized. And certainly some things, as I asked Mr. Glenn Miller to point out, there's tough decisions that have to be made on a yearly basis. And certainly based upon our 5-year maintenance plan and projects, we try to make sure that we are aligning things so that we have a continued cycle of improvements that we're also looking at across the district. I also just want to remind, let me see some questions. I think we're good for right now. So at this point, just to remind everyone, when you put your question into the chat, if you can please remember to put your name and your address, just for us to understand as to where these questions are coming from, that will be really helpful. And also remember, we do have that email address, referendum@mots.org. And please note that that email address has been up and running for the past couple months. And certainly it will be running through the vote next Tuesday. So even after this meeting, if you feel that you had a moment of reflection, I should have asked this question, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We tend to respond to those questions within 24, if not 36 hours. Please don't hold me to that. We're trying to do our best with the small time that we have. Shoni, did you want to share something? Your hand's up. Do you want to add something?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I pressed it by.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I'm not missing anything.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So just give me one moment. I'm just trying to look at the chat as well as I speak. Apparently I've lost my Zoom talents in the time of COVID. So give me one moment. All right. So there is a question as far as if the referendum does not pass, what happens? So Nicole, do you want to share that out, or I can certainly answer that? What do you want to?
Well, if it doesn't pass, then we're going to not be able to do the classroom additions. Those, we're not going to be able to replace roofs in their entirety. We're going to have to piecemeal everything, and it will take several years to get to where we need to be. So, you've discussed it before, Dr. Bangia, with trailers. And by the year 27, 28, it's quoted that we're going to have approximately 350 new students. We do not want to get, that's not a conducive learning environment for students to be in trailers. Mount Olive is quite an amazing school district, and we want to keep it that way. And that's why we just encourage everybody to support and vote.
Yeah, and certainly just to reiterate that, certainly that the ability for the district to address the concerns outlined in the referendum are going to be quite hindered by our state mandated 2% cap on our annual tax revenue. So, so if we're going to spread that out over years to improve, it's going to take quite an amount of time, and certainly the additions are not feasible to be done within our operating budget. And as Ms. Schoen pointed out, the trailers were a part of the life of the student back here in the 80s and 90s. When I went to Mountain View, they were there. They're in the high school when I was there in the 90s. That's certainly something that we don't want to return to. We want to maintain the learning environments that our students have come accustomed to, as well as our larger school community. I know there is a question about I guess interest rate, and we're going to actually get to that in a moment, in which right now we're going to kind of be shifting into the financials right now to just kind of look at that. So just want to remind people that with the December 12th vote, that this is where we're going to be hopefully receiving close to $11.5 million in state aid. Now, at this point, I'm going to be turning it over to our district bond counsel, Tony Solimini, as well as our financial advisor, Danielle Marino. Tony?
Thanks, Dr. Banchia. I think that's, where I'd like to start this evening is your architect has submitted project applications to the New Jersey Department of Education, and that's how these numbers have been arrived at. And these projects have been approved at different percentages, eligible for debt service aid. The important word there is debt. The aid is only available if you have an approved bond referendum and you issue debt. If you funded these projects through your current operating budget, which I think has become pretty evident this evening, that there's no money in your current operating budget to fund these projects, none of these projects would be eligible for any aid under any current funding programs offered by the New Jersey Department of Education. Similarly, if you had money saved in your capital reserve, none of these projects would receive any money under any current funding opportunities currently available. So the only way that the state is going to chip in money for any of these projects is if you have an approved referendum and issue debt. And that's really important for a community like Mount Olive, because that law changed about 20 years ago. And historically, aid was based on the wealth of a community. The law changed, and aid is based on the scope of the project now. So it gives communities like Mount Olive an opportunity to get aid for projects that are eligible for aid. And that's why we've seen referendum throughout the state, because many districts similarly situated to Mount Olive are taking advantage of the debt service aid that's available by the state. Another advantage of the referendum is you're going to finance a new roof. A new roof is going to last you 20 to 25 years. And the benefit of issuing bonds is that all the residents over the next 20 to 25 years are going to pay their fair share of the cost of implementing that roof. If you paid that $6 million upfront in your current budget or in saved monies now, it can be argued that the current residents would be unduly burdened from that huge cost of upfront capital now. So the most equitable thing to do is spread the cost out over the useful life of the project. And that's why the law allows to spread the cost out over the useful life of the projects. So those are some of the benefits of why we've seen a lot of districts kind of take advantage of referendums. And I know there was a question about the interest rates. So I think it's an opportune time to turn it over to Danielle Marino, the board's financial advisor, to talk to you about the current bond market and interest rate projections.
Sure. Thanks, Tony. So currently we're projecting a conservative rate of 4.5% on this bond referendum. And later on in the presentation, we'll show some comparable sales from other school districts that have sold approved referendum bonds in the past year. Question 1 and question 2 are both based on principal and interest. So question 1 is approximately $23 per month on the average home in Mount Olive. And with question 2, it's less than $28 per month on the average home. The average home is the assessed value of $322,000. And the assessed value is very different from the market value. You can find your assessed value either on your tax bill, or there's a link on the Mount Olive referendum website under funding where you can search for your assessed value. Typically, the assessed value lags behind market values, particularly in the past few years where market values have really shot up. So it's important that you look at your assessed value because that's the value you're taxed on. You're not taxed on what you can actually sell your home for.
And I just want to emphasize this, you know, I was curious this past weekend, I actually did a cursory look of recent home sales in Mount Olive and try to and compare them to what their assessed value. There were, you know, some homes that sold for, you know, a little over $1 million, I think a little over $1.1 million. And so those homes, you know, the assessed value is actually $640,000. So, you know, so I just want to make that clear to the public at hand. And thank you for pointing it out, Danielle, that what you see on Zillow, right, is not what we're looking at, you know, so that assessed values is going to be on your tax postcard that you get, as well as if you go on our website, mostd.org/referendum, there's a section you can figure out your assessed value, and it'll tell you exactly. And most homes are much closer to the 322 mark than they would imagine. Thank you, Danielle. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. I also just wanted to talk about the structure of the bonds because I think there are some questions about how the tax impact will go through the term of the bonds. So right now we have the bond wrapped around the district's existing debt, which expires in 2030. So you have this existing debt piece, and then you'll have the new piece. And in 2030, the existing debt will fall off, and you only have the new piece, and it does not increase over time. It actually is very stable through the life of the bonds, and then drops down. The next slide that we're looking at are just some recent comparable sales. Again, we used a 4.5% interest rate, and you know, we just had a sale last week, Butler, your neighbor, and they sold 20-year term bonds. The date says December 19th because those bonds actually haven't closed yet, but they received a 3.76, and that rate is locked in. And then another comparable sale from over the summer, Wall sold bonds for 25 years, 3.99. Again, Metuchen, those are 30-year bonds. They sold at 393. And then your neighbors, again, Riverdale over the summer, 385 for 25-year bonds. And then Manasquan for 391. So, the 4.5 is a conservative rate. I understand the federal funds rate is a higher rate, but that's the short-term overnight rate. And you may have heard of the inverted yield curve. That's where the short-term rates are, in fact, higher than the long-term rates, which is kind of an unusual case that doesn't always happen, but that's just what the market is currently. And then this is another graph that shows interest rates over time. This is an average, the orange is an average rate over since 2002, and the blue is where we are at today. If you look past the 10-year mark, essentially rates are historically average. About 50% of the time rates have been lower. So, this is rates were lower in a post 2008 world during the economic crisis. Federal Reserve has started increasing rates. So now we're at more of an average level.
So just to reiterate, there is a question in the chat. I just want to make sure that when the last time the bond rate was quoted at the February 27th board meeting, a 4.5 rate was anticipated. Since then, the federal funds rates increased 3 times to 5.25. Is 4.5 still valid? I know you but just once again, I just want to make sure that we had that question explicitly asked, so I can, Danielle, Tony.
Sure. Yep. So yeah, the federal funds rate, again, that's the short-term overnight rate. We're looking at 25-year bonds. So the long-term rate, just because the way the curve is currently is lower than the short-term rate. So you could sell a 1-year note, for example, for more than you could potentially sell a 25-year bond.
So it seems like we have another question that's similar to the ones were asked before, and certainly I want to make sure that we address every question. It says, how is there no money in the budget for these projects with all the money received through the property taxes? So do you, Nicole, do you want to kind of walk us through a little bit again as far as how that budget is created? Sorry, I forgot to charge my laptop right now. I'm going to start making sure I don't log off. Go ahead, Nicole.
So as that slide in the beginning, that pie graph, 80% of the budget is going to salaries and benefits. Only 20% is left to take care of the remaining needs of the district, which is all right here in front of you. These major projects that are in this referendum budget for complete replacement, there is just no room in the budget to support any of those projects. That's why the plan is to go to referendum. And as you can see, the slide that Danielle put up before of neighboring school districts with their very large referendums, they're in, Mount Olive is not different from any other district as far as budgeting. We are all in the same boat. Every district is limited to 2% on their tax levy. We are bound by that, and we only have a certain amount of money in which to work. I understand that $118 million is a lot of money. That is our current year budget right now. But that is jam-packed with every need that's in the district, with some money being allocated for projects. There's about roughly $850,000 in this year's budget for capital projects. One was the CMS Phase 2 addition and the security vestibule at the middle school, which was just approved. We chip away at the stone every year and try to do the best with what we can. And as we motor through the school year and try to save as much as possible on spending, we try to achieve some surplus to try to make up from items that were cut maybe out of the budget during the process and see if we can get them in a subsequent year.
So it seems like we have one more question left in the chat. How much of the budget is 20%? Nicole, you want to answer that for us?
Yeah.
Sorry. If you just want to give me a couple minutes, I can
Yeah.
tell you specifically. I don't have that slide in front of me, so I can go back to that.
All right. So as Nicole gathers that answer, I just want to thank the financial advisors, Tony and Danielle, for their expertise. Certainly, thank you for your guidance in this process. We certainly appreciate your thorough background and certainly your support in order to ensure that we are providing the most accurate information. Nicole, do you need more time? Looks like we have one more question in the chat. So we have one more question. Annually, how much money of the budget are you allowed to accrue for future replacement of major systems? So Mr. Salamini, maybe you can talk about how much we can carry over annually in a budget? I can probably maybe answer this question.
Sure. So boards of education are legally allowed to establish certain reserve accounts. One such reserve account is a capital reserve account. And that capital reserve account, the amount of money you can have in that capital reserve account is limited to the local share of the amount of projects in your long-range facility plan. So the amount of money you can save in your capital reserve is really limited by the amount of potential projects you have. So that number varies really depending upon the amount of projects you potentially have at one time.
Right. Thank you. Just to go back to the question before, just to let you know, our budget is approximately about $120 million, roughly, just to give it, is that correct, Ms. Schoening? Just to go back to.
Yes, I can give you that information right now.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so our total budget for this year is $118 million. The 80%, $70.4 million is for salaries and $23.8 million is for benefits. And that combined makes up 80%. The remaining 20% is $23,390,000. And within that $23.4 million, we have to take care of the rest of the district. So if we go the pie chart, if you want to pull up that pie chart, Dr. Bangia.
Yeah, let me see if we can pull that back up again. Give it a second. All right. So there you go. You have it.
So the 18% regular special instruction supplies and services, that's $4.1 million. Athletics and co-curricular, which makes up 4%, is $850,000. Our out-of-district tuition is $2.5 million. Our support services, for which is health, guidance, related services, the library, $2.2 million. Central office, school administration and technology is $1.8 million. Operation and maintenance of plant is $6.6 million. Transportation is $3.3 million. Capital outlay, $1.9 million, for a total of the $23.4 million, which makes up the remaining 20%.
And Ms. Schoening, you had brought something up at our public meeting last week, that how, as a school district, we publicly present our budget on an annual basis, correct?
Yes.
So, and that presentation is typically done, we do a preliminary budget presentation followed by a formal one in April of every school year, in which all this is detailed, correct?
Right. Preliminary budget adoption is usually about the first week in March, because it's due to the county office statutorily by March 20th, I believe is the date. And then once the budget is approved by the county office, it's advertised, and then we have a budget hearing. But in both instances, the budget is rolled out I will be rolling out the budget in detail.
Yeah. And just to clarify, going back to your statement, oh, did someone want to say something? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Dr. Banchi, I just have a question for Ms. Schoening.
Yeah.
Just as a point of clarification, and I mean, your board is lucky that you have Ms. Schoening, a very experienced business administrator that's had a very, very good career. The numbers you present here, aren't they very similar to every district? Isn't this basically what every district's budget looks like, and Mount Olive is not unique?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any district, you can go to any district and you go to their website, go to their user-friendly budgets. They're all posted. They are required to post their user-friendly budgets on there, and you'll be able to see, and our budget is exactly the same way. You'll be able to see those dollar amounts, the 3 columns. There are three years of data. There's the audited number, there's the adjusted budget, and then there's the proposed budget. So every district has the same. It'll be at a much, depending upon the size of the district, but we all have the same. The only thing that could be different would be if you're a walking district, so you don't provide transportation, so you wouldn't have that cost factor in it. But other than transportation, you would have pretty much every other item that we're showing up here on the screen.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. I mean, I just think that's important for the audience members to realize that, this allocation of funds is basically the same in every district. Mount Olive is not doing anything different than any other district. Every pie chart, if you pulled up for almost every school district, would look exactly the same. And that's the reason why when you have these large capital projects, you need to go to a referendum. Most districts need to go to a referendum to borrow the funds to do the projects.
And just to clarify, what just going back to that 80%, that's for every employee in the district, correct, Nicole?
Every
staff,
single, all staff,
right?
All staff.
Yeah. So just to clarify, and do we have a ballpark how many people we employ in the district? Do we know that off the top? I'm just asking. No one asked that question. I just kind of asked that question.
We have. That is a very good question. I really can't give you.
Is it around like 800 right now? I want to say I want to say it's closer to around that, if not more.
It could be. It could be close to 1,000 by the time we have substitutes and.
Yeah. And the reason I just want to share that is the fact that we run a very large enterprise as far as, it takes to educate a child, but not from the classroom all the way to supporting that classroom. And at the end of the day, the question I always ask, and this is the question I asked on the first day of school. And I know I see Mr. Miller smiling because I had my little presentation with my my great music playing in the background, or in my head rather. But everyone in our district, I always ask the question, what is best for students? And it doesn't matter what role they play. That is the question we ask of ourselves, whether it be the classroom teacher, whether it be the custodial staff, the grounds maintenance, the individual, including myself. Everyone is working towards that goal. And everyone on this call is working toward that goal as well. And I'm very proud of the fact that all employees in our district, all, hundreds of them, focus upon always what's doing best for the kids in the Mount Olive Township School District. We actually do have one more question in the chat. So I'm going to ask this right now. How can we be sure that costs will not exceed the amount in the budget? What if the estimates are not enough? What happens if inflation drives up the cost of construction and supplies? Maybe Tony, you want to pick that one up? Matt, if you want to kind of tag team that a little bit.
Sure. The Board of Education is not legally allowed to spend 1 cent more than is authorized by the voters. So it's a safeguard put in place to make sure that public bodies are good stewards of money approved by the voters. So the district does not have the legal ability to spend 1 cent more. And in order to make sure that happens, I think Matt can talk to you a little bit about escalation that he put in, and also other assumptions that he included in his project.
Sure. So we do include a contingency as part of the budget of the referendum. We feel as though it's adequate enough to address any of those, escalations that, we've been seeing over recent years. We, these numbers, are budget numbers, they're estimates that, we're not just, throwing darts at a wall. Okay. We are constantly bidding projects, in our other districts and, in Mount Olive. We are consulting with, other firms, what kind of prices they're seeing. We're talking to, contractors and suppliers as far as, material costs go. So we have a pretty good gauge on, current and, near future costs for these types of projects. So between that, knowledge as far as building, the estimates to begin with, and then, putting a contingency in there, we feel as though, we're in a good space, a good spot as far as the budget goes. And as Tony had said, we're not legally allowed to spend $1 more than what the voters approve.
And I think that's really critical that, that we can't go over what's allocated in this referendum, but also be clear of the fact that this entire plan was vetted by the state, right? As far as those estimates that were determined for each of the projects, correct, Matt? So it's not that somehow we sat around a table and figured this number out, but those numbers are vetted numbers that are also, industry averages, if not averages, what's taking place, correct?
Yes, that's correct. We've submitted all of the projects to the New Jersey Department of Education. They review all the projects, all the project descriptions, all the project cost estimates. They review everything. They review what's eligible, what's not eligible. They make sure that, our costs are in that realistic realm. They don't want to, provide 34% funding on, a $200 million roof. Okay. They want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and, giving realistic costs. So yes, everything has been reviewed by the state.
Perfect. All right. I think we got all the questions related to the referendum right now. Let me just double check. Also, I just want to, before we start to wrap up, because it is, I think it is 8:25, almost 8:30. Just remind everyone that this session is being recorded. It's going to be available on our website. So certainly, if you would like to rewatch it, please do. It's going to be available on our referendum subpage of the district webpage. And also, please refer to the website for our frequently asked questions, our videos, as well as the project details and voter information. Also, just want to remind everyone that voting can take place 8 in the morning to 8 at night on Tuesday, December 12th. If you have a mail-in ballot, it has to be postmarked by December 12th or left in one of the drop boxes that are listed on our website. I would like to take this time to thank all our professional consultants and district experts for contributing their expertise tonight. Thanks to everyone who joined us tonight to hear about the improvements that would continue the tradition of excellence here in Mount Olive that we've come to known for and ensure that our students have the space needed for them to learn. And let's not forget, we can also bring millions of dollars into state aid here into Mount Olive. So once again, have a great night and remember to vote on December 12th. Thanks again. Good night.